Janssen is heavily involved in Harmony. We're contributing quite a lot of full-time headcount as well as clinical trial data over the course of the 5 years. So we're across a number of work packages, work package 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. I'm personally involved heavily in work package 6, so co-leading with Aline from Celgene, we've been trying very hard to coordinate our activities with work package 2 because there's a lot of synergies in understanding the outcomes definitions and how they relate to the different stakeholders. So, you know, work package 2 is very clinically focused, and so for work package 6, one of the key drivers for us is bringing those other stakeholders at the table, so our payers, our HTA bodies, our regulators, and our patient organisations, you know, to talk to us. Today, for example, is a really good example for us of where there's a lot of synergies and overlap. But also I think it's about the communication and the ability for everybody to sit down and talk and realise actually there's a lot to offer from the different stakeholders. So I think it's that I don't know what I don't know until people explain and explore these other opportunities and these other issues that are out there for the patient organisations and the HTA bodies. So for me today was a very good example of what we can do if we sit at the table and have a discussion about what's meaningful to the different stakeholders. And I think clearly today we're one step further ahead now in understanding that. So, you know, if we can get to the point where, as was suggested, we take on, say, a COMET methodology of using these Delphi panels, we'll have a very systematic, transparent mechanism to say what are the core outcomes that are meaningful to the different stakeholders across the 7 different hematological malignancies. As I'm involved in other work packages, clearly there's an alignment needed to make sure that work package 3 and 4, which is about the data access, the data platforming, work package 5 is the analytics, is to really start to understand more about the outcomes which we are starting to come up with within work package 2 and 6. So I think structurally speaking, we need to have a list of core outcomes that we can really work with. And then we need to educate those in the other work packages so that they can utilise them appropriately for their deliverables in their work packages as well. If we can create a standard outcomes, we have a greater influence and ability to help our regulators and our payers to see that there is a reason behind us suggesting outcomes which may be slightly different to the ones they currently use. So I think there's that shift in policy and a shaping of guidelines that's critical. The big data for better outcomes is the other overarching piece, and if we can get the data from the different data custodians to look at these outcomes we're measuring, we truly are looking at the big outcomes. If you have big data, you have a much greater chance of precision medicine. So we can say to the patient, you know, this cohort of data tells us that this is the best treatment options for you in this order to give you the best quality of life. And we know what quality of life means because we've got a core outcome set here that defines that. So I think for me, it's those 2 overlapping pieces. Mostly it's a surprise in a good way of how actually when people sit down, they're much more open to the discussion than you think they might be. Again, I think it's people are tentative if they don't know something or they think there's a risk associated with it. But I think once everybody realises there is no special description of a public partner or a special description of a private partner, but we're actually all ultimately patients ourselves and ultimately want to just bring treatments to patients, then you find that there's a workable platform. So for me, that's the big surprise. The challenge is always that there's just a lot of people, and you've got to try and find a way of making sure that the voice is heard from those people through their stakeholder leads. This is exciting. I think we've made a really good step forward in the past 12 months of Harmony. Obviously we've got another 4 years to go, and I do think, I'm confident now that we'll get there. It's a long road and there's a lot to do, but I think that we're all making steps and we're all trying to find the right road to get us there. So I think we're all working, relatively speaking, in harmony to do that. So that's a good thing.